Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Digital Circus episode ranking. The Amazing Digital Circus has currently 8 episodes in total, the 8th episode releasing on March 20th of this year. And I haven't seen anyone do a Digital Circus ranking on all 8 episodes. I've seen some rankings definitely, but they're all up to episode 7, and since episode 8 just released, I think it's my duty to rank all the 8 episodes of the Digital Circus according to my opinion. I'm gonna rank them based on how much they bring the lore forward, how much they focus on the characters, and how much jokes there are. All depends. And in the end, it's just my opinion, so you can have your own opinion on these episodes. What I hate, you may enjoy. What I like, you may hate. There may be differences. So without further ado, let's get into the ranking. Oh, at the bottom of the ranking, we have episode 4. I'm sorry, but one episode must go at the bottom list, and The Amazing Digital Circus has almost all of its episodes are amazing, really good. They match with the title. They're all amazing, just as the title says. It's The Amazing Digital Circus. But against all odds, episode 4 is the lowest at the list. Why is episode 4 so low on the list? That's maybe because this episode is just the most quote unquote filler episode of the show, I guess. Mostly because this episode really doesn't bring the plot forward or explain us anything new to the story. It's mostly them working at this fast food restaurant known as Sputzies. And there are a funny few jokes and a bit of character development, but that is all sacrificed because of the jokes. And now the jokes might be pretty good at times, but they're not always good. And yeah, there are some jokes that I really like. That with the Bannock episode 1, Pomni trying to talk to Gummy but is scared because she realized that Gummy doesn't remember her anymore. And there are jokes with the customers trying to order their food, but the episode is really light. There's nothing really to it. You can't really get out of it as much as you can from watching other episodes. And it's just just trying to get adjusted to the characters, just anchoring them to yourself, so you can relate to them more. And it's the first episode where they don't follow Caine's adventures and they just do their own thing. Gangle gets a lot of character development here, and you get to see that not everyone finds her good when she's always happy, and that makes her sad. And the ending is pretty weird, where she just gets hit by a truck, I guess, and I'm not sure what happens there. But yeah, episode 4 has a lot of flaws, but a lot of good qualities overall. But if you want best Amazing Digital Circus atmosphere and the pleasure of watching the show at its peak, episode 4 is gonna give you the least enjoyment out of them. I just don't think episode 4 is any good, honestly. It's good, I mean, it's not bad. It's really good, but it's just lower. It has a lower bar compared to the other episodes. I might get a bit of hate on for this, but yeah, I don't like episode 4 that much. I usually skip it when rewatching the show. I think it's pretty boring, and um, there's a lot of stuff wrong with it, I think. The Gangle thing is always fine, but the setting is a bit boring. I mean, it's ironic, obviously. They go on these silly, crazy adventures, and now they're working at a fast food chain. But they don't really, to push it farther with the concept. I think it's pretty locked in, and also not mentioning, it's a pretty short episode with about 23 minutes of runtime. And yeah, that's it. That's my episode 4 review. And that's it. That's my episode 4 review. Please don't get it the wrong way. I don't hate episode 4. I think it's really good. It has some flaws that I think there is. There are some flaws, I think. And they can be easily fixed. And the episode really needed a bit of, lower progression and a bit more, character development on the note of Gangle. If you're going to focus on her, that is, because Gangle does get character development here, but Gangle is not really that much of a character that we care about. I mean we care about Jax and Pomni and and those are the only ones, I guess. I don't really care about the others. So yeah, I don't really think I need an entire episode focused on Gangle's entire disability or something. It's not bad again. I think its channel's really good, but they need to make Gangle a bit more important, in the later episodes to make me rewatch this with my own enjoyment. This is like a 1 or 2 time watch thing. Okay, moving on. The last worst episode of Amazing Digital Circus is episode 2, in my opinion. Again, I think episode 2 is a severe improvement from episode 4. I literally basically have no complaints against this episode. But the episode is competing against like absolute masterpieces like episode 8 and episode 3 and episode 6. There were a lot of competition. So episode 2 really falls on that one. I think episode 2 works well as a second episode, obviously. But I feel the pilot and episode 2 are just so similar in concept. Like both of them are relating to Pomni's struggle in like adjusting to this new environment. But episode 1 does that better, obviously, and Pomni finally accepts her new life here. But yeah, it's done well. I have no problems against it. But there's less material in here compared to other episodes. Yeah, and obviously there's Gumgyu's realization. I think the episode needed a bit more darker moments, which we don't get at all. Like, yeah, Pomni is afraid of abstraction, gets caught by her friends at the end because she realizes that her friends actually care for her, and that's something. Pomni finally realizes these people in the circus, they actually are humans and they love each other, because when they go to attend Kaufmo's funeral, she realizes that. And we get a lot of jokes here, obviously. Again, it's a really hard explaining why it's so low, because like all the episodes, I can't really say anything bad about this. The episode length is okay. It's not too short, not too long. And episode is really is a good episode after episode 1, but it's sandwiched between episode 1, which I really like a lot more than episode 2, and episode 3, which is, well, I'm not gonna spoil it, but it's really high up on the list. And episode 2, obviously no faults. Gumyu's character is here really well done. Gumyu later dies at the end of the episode. That's something. But yeah, episode 2, a lot more development than episode 4. I might have some problems with episode 4, but I really have no problems with episode 2. Episode 2 just needed a bit more to it. Obviously, yeah, but we don't get a lot of information on the other characters, such as Ragata, Zubul, Gangle, Kinger. They all already get sidelined. Pomni, Jax, and Gummy get all the screen time they deserve, I guess. Yeah, an episode is near the bottom of the list. It doesn't mean that it's bad. It means that it could have done more. There was potential for it to be better. That's what I mean when it's near the lower end of the ranking. Well, moving on. Next on the ranking, we have episode 5. Again, episode 5 gets a lot more improvement. The improvement is constantly getting more improved. Now, you already know all the positives that I have to say about this episode. The things that they already say. This episode is probably the first one we finally get like a lot in depth about each character in detail, in the bar scene mostly. And there are a lot of funny jokes. We don't talk about the Jax joke of him wearing a maid dress. That's something. I don't want to show it here. You can just see in the episode later on. Uh, and besides, this episode is really funny. This episode has a lot of gags, and I'd say episode 5 is it's also a kind of like a filler episode, but not really. Episode 4 is more like a filler episode. Episode 5 is basically a lot of funny jokes and a few minutes dedicated to the characters, you know. And Caine finally shows a bit of his, egotistical nature here, of him trying to be the one, of trying to control everyone, trying to take in on his adventures. He wants to be the guy who makes the adventures, not theirs. And that's why he tries to teach them a lesson here, obviously. Episode 5 is a big problem with, I guess, pacing. I don't know. Pacing is kind of a problem, I'm not sure. The adventures, yeah, it really says lightning round, but when you really think about it, there's only like 4, I guess 5 total adventures. That's not really a lightning round. I thought there could have been a bit more adventures to there, and also they're really not well paced, I guess. I think the anime one, deserved a bit more screen time. I really liked the anime part anyway. It was pretty interesting of how 3D animators draw them as 2D characters, and that's interesting. But so yeah, that deserved a bit more screen time. And the stargazing one was fun. The Pomni President was cool. The Poacher's Paradise deserved a bit more screen time, obviously. The bar scene was probably the best part of the episode, and the softball game, yeah, I like the softball game. It's okay. Anyway, the episode obviously could have been a bit better with a bit more adventures and well, the characters get enough screen time here. The jokes are pretty good. I have really nothing bad to say about this episode. This episode is almost perfect. You know, episode 5 just felt a little less good to me when I was watching it. Like, I was going through a series of good, good, and good, and episode 5 just felt like something was missing. I'm not still sure what's missing here, but something feels off about this episode. But overall, it's really fun, it's really amazing, it's got a lot of focus on the characters, and I wouldn't take it for any other way. The pilot episode. The Digital Circus pilot episode is honestly one of the best pilots I've ever seen. Like, I can compare this to like Gravity Falls Tourist Trapped or SpongeBob's Help Wanted. I guess SpongeBob's Help Wanted is not that good. Uh, the pilot really covers a lot of things in a really short time. First of all, there's a lot of things to explain in the Amazing Digital Circus. There's like abstraction, there's the entire game concept, trapped in a game concept. There's Caine, the adventures, the characters, the basics of how to live here. It's a lot of things to understand. The basic atmosphere is also really interesting, unique, and if not explained clearly, it might get a bit hard to understand for like viewers. And I think the pilot does such a well job that people instantly get hooked into the show. Like, this is the thing that got me hooked. This pilot does so much in such a short time. It not it. You might think this pilot is probably the longest episode, but no, episode 6 is the longest episode. That's weird because the pilot has the most material in it than any other episode. Mostly because we get to introduce ourselves to this new world. Like Pomni, we're also like new to the circus. And the way it introduces us to the characters, the abstraction part, and it's really interesting to note. Like, when you first see the video, I guess the episode, you might think this is a kids show, but the moment you see the abstraction, you know something's wrong with this. And then the atmosphere, the entire plot point of being controlled by this godlike AI who wants to play with you, make you go on adventures. It feels like heaven, but it's actually hell in disguise. The pilot is so good for this reason. And the animation, I don't want to comment on animation. It's okay. The animation is fine. I think I would have considered it good, but the later episodes really proved me wrong. But on a standalone basis, the animation is really good. And yeah, that's the pilot. The pilot does everything well. We clearly see Pomni's delving into insanity, her constant reaching for the exit behavior, and finally almost being lost in the void. Oh, that's all cool. And the way it establishes the entire show's point is really interesting. And we get to see a lot in the pilot. The pilot is made in a way to hook you in and make you want for more. And Caine is probably the best character in the show. He's so cool. Like, his every single sentence he says is extremely memorable, and the designs are obviously really great, and the jokes also hit very well. The pilot really balances well on the jokes to horror than the mental horror, I guess. It really balances well on everything. That's why it has 41 crore views. There is a reason for that. And they don't like take time to establish anything. They just establish everything at once. I guess this pilot is more acts like some sort of way to get hooked into the show. The pilot gives you a lot to ask for and a lot of answers to questions you never asked. Like, it's not that after watching the episode you're like, I didn't understand anything, I want to know more. It's like, I understand a lot of things, but I want to see more of these characters. That is what you want from a show. You don't want to leave the viewers confused on the very first episode. You just want to make them used to the characters and make it in a way so that they feel like they want more of it. And when you give them more of it, they take it in well and not just get confused and don't relate themselves to the show. And the pilot, Digital Circus pilot, does that really well and appreciated for that. And that's why it almost gets near the middle spot of the list. It's obviously not the best, the show gets really better afterwards, and it's obviously not the worst because it does a real important job. And we need to respect that. You need to respect the pilot a lot more. I think we ignore the pilot a bit after all the things we've seen. It is the reason that Digital Circus is popular. If the pilot was bad, I don't think anyone would have wanted more, even if the story later had been good. Episode 7 really shows us that, if the ending is predictable, that does not mean the episode is always bad. When I first watched episode 7, I was already sure that they wouldn't get out alive. I guess they wouldn't ever get out. That was impossible for me. And I was right, they didn't get out in that episode. But the way they really conveyed that part is really amazing. Everyone, when watching the episode, already knew that they're not getting out. And they knew that it was probably Caine's tricks. But the way they told the story is amazing. First of all, Abel. There's a lot of theories going around Abel, whether he's actually a human or whether he's the other blue AI, which we saw in episode 8. Obviously, spoilers for episode 8 throughout this ranking. Obviously, during the episode 8 part where we get there. But episode 7 really shows that. The animation quality here gets really impressive, actually. And I really like Abel's character. Even though he's created by Caine, he really feels like a human. And that's maybe because he's always a human. I guess he's already a human before this. Maybe Caine is using the memories from another human, actually. Probably one of the first people that abstracted before, like Scratch. Maybe Abel is actually Scratch's mind uploaded into him, this dummy, trying to play as Caine's part. But there were theories that Abel was actually a human guiding them to exit, but Caine lied to them about everything. But I think that really gets cleared up in episode 8, where Caine says that he was in fact making an adventure for them, and there was no human in Abel to begin with, I guess. Also, it shows us that how early they were planning this story, because we already saw in episode 5, because when Abel was staring at them in episode 5 in the ending, and even in episode 1 we can see Abel for a split second. That's real storytelling. There's also one in episode 8 which we'll get back there when we get there. And yeah, episode 7 is really good, and it has a lot of interesting moments. It's the first episode actually that leaves up on a major cliffhanger, and there's a lot of questions that were answered to in episode 8 and a lot that aren't answered. There's also a lot of character development on Jax. Jax almost distracts in this episode, and there's a weird hallucination scene which is really well done, but I think it goes for a bit too long. Why episode 7 isn't higher? Because, even though the episode was well made, I knew the ending. That's a little sad. I mean, they really did their best, but, episode 8, 3, and those other episodes you're covering later just do it so much better. You don't really expect anything there, and that makes it really more special than episode 7. If episode 7 had an unpredictable ending, I think it would have been higher. And also, the episode is barely anything about breaches. And yes, I also like the fish gag, with the fish just being like weirdly animated characters. Next up, in the third place, we have episode 6, the longest TADC episode, actually. Now, why is episode 6 higher than episode 7 and all the others? Episode 6 is really good. Episode 6 has a relationship between Jax and Pomni, mostly. And I really like how Jax tries to make Pomni realize that this is all a game and she doesn't need to base anything off of reality. that's somewhat of an important lesson, and I think he's trying to lead her to also like detaching from everyone so that she doesn't have to relate to the fact that her friends might die one day, and then she'll feel sad, and Jax doesn't want to make her feel that, and the relation from Jax being somewhat of bully to Pomni in the earlier episodes, so from slowly being a helper to Pomni, guiding him the way through the circus, is really interesting in a way. And there's guns. There's guns in the episode. Did I mention that? You can already see they have guns. I love guns. This episode already just exceeds in quality because of the guns and the shooting and the violence. All the characters, I really like what all the characters has become with violence. Kinger's tactical role, Gangle just being a maniac, just finding a gun, Ragatha just shooting Jax by just sheer luck of just pressing her finger into the bullet hole, and just the bullet just comes on the other side into Jax's face. That's amazing, actually. And it also kind of confirms the theory that the characters can just create anything if they really try to think about it and believe in it. We also get full confirmation episode 8, but we're getting there. Yeah, King also uses a butterfly, which he really makes up from imagination. And episode 6 really exceeds in the character development side, you know. And yeah, Pomni's face is really funny here. And they also sing the Daisy Bell together, Jax and Pomni. That's really funny. This episode has a lot of guns. Guns, guns, and guns. Episode 6, Gun Third. Shooting to the third place. Zubul tries to get a lot of parts. And yes, Zubul tries to get a lot of parts attached to herself so that she could get hold of more guns. This episode is a gun fest. If you like guns, this episode is yours. Second place of the Amazing Digital Circus episode ranking, we have episode 3. Why is episode 3 so high up? Because I love episode 3. Why do I love episode 3? Well, let me be clear. Kinger is my second favorite character in the entire series besides Jax. And an episode that really focuses on both of them is really interesting. Now, I already like Kinger because of its goofy attitude and its dark lore. That is actually a creator of this amazing digital circus game. That's really interesting to note. And the relation between King and Pomni in this episode is really interesting to note. When they get trapped in hell, I think that's the most interesting part because King really helps Pomni grow confidence in herself. That's interesting to note because Pomni before this really didn't have any self confidence. She was always scared and didn't like any of the other characters really that much. Yeah, she kind of trusted in them after episode 2, but she didn't really get attached to them. She didn't really understood how grateful she should be to them for taking care of her for this long. And that's what Kinger helps here. And also this episode has a scary monster, which is probably my favorite monster design in any of animated history. And this, I'm saying "and" a lot, aren't I? That's because I'm thinking about what I have to say next. I don't write a script or anything. Episode 2 is something of itself. Episode 3 is amazing in its own sense. It's the first episode that really delves into the horror part of the Amazing Digital Circus. And before episode 2, I guess before episode 3, I meant, when you watch the first two episodes, you don't really feel like this show is any sort of dark material. It really feels like some sort of kids show, some kind of Coco Melon show. But yeah, episode 1 was obviously a bit dark in a psychological sense, but it didn't really delve too much into that. It was really funny either way. Episode 2 also a funny episode. Episode 3 really cemented my love for the Amazing Digital Circus. If episode 3 wasn't there and we just jumped straight into episode 4, I wouldn't have followed the show this much. And I have respect for that to episode 3. The melancholy or whatever it was, the manner episode, yeah, the animation really improves on this one. I think this is the first episode where I objectively think the animation is better than any other 3D show I've ever seen. So yeah, thanks to Glitch for that, and Gooseworx, I guess, for, well, making the story, of course. And caine therapeuting Zubal is really funny. So they really balance the funny and the scary here, which I really like, and the dark environment and that real human corpse. I mean, it's not real, but it looks realistic. It's extremely detailed. Human corpse, the monster, Kinger being brave, Kinger giving Pomni confidence. It's all I love. It's all I love. You know, this episode is so good. It's so good, and there's a lot of scary scenes besides the monster of Pomni turning into actually the scary version of herself by souls going into her. That's really interesting. We get to know of Kinger's wife. There's a lot of lore reveals. There's an entire tape which kind of hints at Kinger's past, Kinger's wife's abstraction, Kinger's wife's abstraction. That's really hard to say. And yeah, this episode probably the darkest in the series. Well, it used to be the darkest in the series before episode 8 came out. And we're gonna talk about that right now. And finally, we have episode 8. It's on the number 1 spot. Why? Because it's not just because of recency bias. I think episode 8 is the most lore based episode in the entire show. It's obviously the most lore based. Caine finally absolutely breaks here, which I was predicting for a long time. I knew that Caine couldn't hold himself together for this long. Caine is obviously a god, and I was waiting for him to realize that. And Caine finally realizes he's a god and he can do anything to these people, and that's what I really like about it. Plot twist. There's a plot twist in this episode which we never really got before, of Kinger actually deleting Caine from existence, the circus and Charlie glitching out, all the characters being stuck in this now dead corpse of a circus, which used to be so much fun and energetic. I guess it was not that fun and energetic, but it looked like that. So now there's a big plot twist, and there's also a cliffhanger, which is far bigger than episode 7's. The episode also has a lot of character development. Caine goes insane. Kinger, finally, we get to see Kinger's smart side again. The rest of the cast also gets to see it for themselves. And yeah, we get to also get a lot of low reveals, such as the other AI that Caine ate, the blue AI. There is a theory that Kinger actually didn't delete Caine on accident, and there's some other AI, the second AI, which actually helped in that Caine's deletion, and he was the one responsible for that. There's also a theory like that. Episode 8 is truly the best in the series, and you can really see how well the show is developing over time. When the best episode is a recent episode, you know the finale is gonna hit harder than any other show in history, and you can really see how much they're developed from in animation since episode 1. And episode 8, in all respects, is really a masterpiece. I have nothing to add here. The episode pacing is good, and we get to see Kinger and Queenie together. We see the backstory. We really see Caine's birth to Caine's death in this episode, which was really interesting. There's also a callback to the first ever Digital Circus teaser in Gooseworx's channel. It was really early. We have not even seen the show yet. The trailer hadn't been even released yet, and they actually connected that video to this episode of Pomni eating, and then we transported to Caine, who like tortures her with knives in a teaser trailer, and then he returns to this episode. I guess she returns to this episode with a bunch of knives in her face, which is really interesting to note. I already realized that there was some sort of connection when I saw the knives there, but I really didn't think about it. I saw it on another YouTube video, which really is interesting. And yeah, episode 8 is masterpiece. They really put all their work into it. The lore, the comedy, the tension, the characters, everything is amazing. Caine's breaking point, Bubbles, I guess, and Caine's deletion, the plot twist, the cliffhanger, everything just combines to become a masterpiece of an episode. Well, that's it for today, everyone. Thanks for watching.